Hello and welcome to week 12 of the Advanced Full Distance Training Program. I hope you're doing good, I hope you're enjoying your training, and I hope you're ready for a rest and test week. That's right, we'll be going back to the same benchmark tests that we did in week 3 of this training plan. And by the way, as I'll mention later in this video as well, I went into detail on how to execute the tests in the video that I did for week 3. I won't go into quite the same detail on all of the same things this week. I will remind you of some important things, but not all of that. So I highly recommend that you, after watching this video, also go back and watch the video for week 3, because I will remind you of some aspects of the testing itself. But anyway, the testing serves some important purposes, like letting you know what the progress you've made over the last couple of months is, and we can reassess your training zones and thresholds, and in particular on the bike and run this is important to get an up-to-date training prescription through that, and then also it will just allow you to get some confidence in how the plan is working for you. But in addition to the testing and the objectives of the testing, the lower volume of this training week, so it's back at, or we're down at 12 hours, with the range being anywhere from 10 hours 20 to 14 hours, depending on how long you choose to go in some adjustable duration workouts. And so this low volume compared to what you have been doing in the last little while will allow you to really freshen up and be really ready, recovered, and prepared to tackle another heavy training block coming up after this week. In terms of getting the most out of yourself on the test days, the same things that we talked about in week 3 apply. You need to prepare yourself mentally that you will suffer, you will be hurting. That's part of testing, I'm afraid. So prepare yourself for some tough negotiations with yourself in your head, and prepare yourself to be using positive self-talk to get yourself through that. That is really, really a good method to get the most out of yourself. Also, get as much sleep as you can. Try to get some extra sleep compared to what you normally get, because that can be a really good performance enhancer. And the other thing that I want to mention is intensity control is, of course, always important, but even more so now. So err on the side of caution when it comes to low intensity workouts. There's no need to make a zone 1/zone 2 run on the very high end. If you can do it on the low end, and you still feel that you're actually moving, or what I want to say is that you're getting if we take the easy run here, for example, on the Tuesday, and the prescription says, well, you're going at roughly 70 to 80% of threshold pace, then 30 minutes at 80% is still not something that is a stimulus as a hard or challenging workout, just as 70% isn't. But 80% really isn't any better than 70% in terms of workout stimulus, but both of these workouts serve their purpose of being good as maintenance and just frequency of aerobic conditioning, getting your heart rate up a little bit, and getting that pounding in the legs for 30 minutes. You get that whether you're running slow or running fast, even though you get more of it, of course, when you're running fast. But basically, you get a lot of the stimulus that we intend to, or you get all of them at the low end of this prescription, just as you get at the high end. So, but you might actually be accumulating a bit more fatigue at 80% compared to 70%. So don't be afraid to go at the lower end of the prescribed workout intensities this week in particular, in order to be really fresh for the tests and perform when it matters. So that's one more thing that I wanted to really get across as super important. Then after you have done the tests, one more thing on getting the most out of tests themselves, have a clear pacing strategy. So of course you should be aware of what you did in week 3, but you have probably improved quite a bit since then. So also you should be aware of, have a sense of how much you have improved in a way. So how have your workout performance is improved? How do you feel that in terms of perception, your threshold might have improved, and what might that tell you about your ability to perform over 1,000 meters in the pool, or 20 minutes on the bike or on the run? So have a pacing strategy, but also be flexible and don't be afraid to go on feel. If you feel during the test that actually my pacing strategy is the wrong one, I'm going slightly too too easy or slightly too fast, and I need to adjust because I just don't feel I can sustain this, or actually I feel that I can sustain something harder than this for the duration of the 20 minutes. This is how we learn to pace, by actually doing it in practice. So that's another thing that you need to keep in mind when it comes to getting the most out of yourself for the tests. And then after the tests, remember to update your thresholds and training zones in your training peaks settings. And maybe I'll show again with the demo athlete, if you bear with me here while I drag it onto this screen. So here this athlete, if we look at the athlete settings, you need to, the athlete training zones, of course, updating your threshold, heart rate and power, speed and power, whatever it is, and your thresholds. I have a video in the in the description there are links for how to do that, but you just need to remember to do that, and you need to remember that in particular if you're using power on the bike, it's important that you update. If you have a bike power setting, that is what you need to update, not just the default, or you can skip the default if you want to, but you need to update the bike power. Same if you have the pace setting and you're using pace for your run, and if you have the default but you maybe have a swim and you maybe have a run. If you have a run, you need to update the run threshold and the run zones, because they override the default values. So they are the ones that will be dragged into, just need to cancel this, excuse me. They're the ones that will be dragged into the structured workouts. So that's what you will see at the other end when you get the workout details in a workout, like, for example, the hill reps, or whichever workout it applies to, or whichever workout it is we're talking about. I mean, in terms of biking and running, not swimming. So remember that, and as I said, I talked about that a bit more in the video for week 3, but also you have all the information for that in the comments and descriptions down below in the actual testing workouts. You are getting guidance for that. So there aren't really any other workouts to highlight this week than what was already mentioned, then the tests, and just a few things that I do want to mention. Again, go back and look at the video for week 3 for more details. But in terms of the time between the 100 and the 1000 all-out time trial, the main thing to remember here is that you want to be fresh for the 1000. So you can feel free to take more rest if needed, swim less, whatever you want to do, swim more, swim harder, swim easier, but you should do whatever it takes to be as ready as possible to do the 1000 all-out, but well-paced, as best as you possibly can. All right, so it's not about sticking on having to stick exactly to this suggestion that I have here for the timing between the tests. And then when it comes to the bike, we talked about if you're training for a non-draft race, where you will be racing in the TT position, you should also test in the TT position, and you should test in the environment where you train the most. So if you train mostly indoors, then test indoors. If you train mostly outdoors, then test outdoors. And of course, if you test outdoors, you need to make sure that you have actually a stretch of road where that is possible, and also that it is possible to do it in the TT position. Because otherwise, if you don't have that, then I suggest testing indoors, even if you train outdoors more often than not. And for the run, I mentioned that you should do the test in the same shoes that you use for your normal hard training runs. So don't use your carbon plate shoes that you use for race day if you don't use them in training, because that will give you a false threshold or false training zones for actual training. Just do the test in the same shoes that you will use in training, and then you'll be good to go. That's it. Good luck with the tests, and I'll talk to you next week.